In the first 4 episodes, you had the opportunity to hear about my story and the journey of my small business. I'm so excited that I get to start bringing other creators on my podcast and share their stories with you too. In this week's episode, I'll be hosting my very first guest, Kristen, with Simply Joy Creations by Kristen. We are going to dive into her journey as a booth owner and her love of mixed media. She is so talented, and I know you guys are going to love her as much as I did from the moment I met her.
Welcome to the Rescued and Upcycled podcast with weekly inspiration, tips on trying new techniques, and overall real talk about owning your own DIY business. Now here's your host, Sonnet Ullenbrock.
Welcome back to Rescued and Upcycled. I'm your host, Sonnet Ullenbrock. I want to thank you all for joining me in the first 4 episodes of my podcast as you guys all got to know me a bit better. In today's episode, I'm so excited to introduce you to my good friend, Kristen Reed of Simply Joy Creations by Kristen. Kristen is so talented, you guys, and is well known as an amazing mixed media artist. I love all her beautiful creations, so let's bring Kristen on. Welcome, Kristen, and thank you so much for being my very first podcast interview. I met Kristen when I was first thinking about launching my membership group, you guys, and I wanted to interview a few of my viewers. And I tossed out the idea, and I wanted to just get feedback from them about my membership program that I wanted to host. And Kristen was one of my very first viewers who reached out and agreed to participate in that group. I'm so happy she did. So welcome, Kristen. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I have now known you for, is it like going on 3 years that we've
We're
known?
about to start 3 years, yes.
Yes. So every day I feel so blessed that you came into my life. You are so stinking talented and full of amazing ideas for the group. And, I love all your creations. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live. I know you have a hubby.
Yes, currently I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with my husband. Absolutely am loving this new chapter of life. I was originally, though, from Minnesota, a really small town in northern Minnesota, raised by 2 wonderful parents. And my sister and I loved garage sailing and thrifting at young ages. So we were partners in crime when it came to that. I think you would have got a kick out of how we got some furniture back to our apartment back in the day. Um,
Awesome.
so that has been really fun. You always are asked, like, when you grow up, what would you like to be? And my answers were, I wanted to write a book, I wanted to be an artist, I wanted to be a motivational speaker, and I wanted to be an interior designer. However, I ended up being a math teacher. And so I know for over 11 years, I taught math. Most of it was in southern Minnesota in a small town. But I tried to incorporate creativity as much as I could in my classroom. We were building castles. We were we were building board games. Any way that I could incorporate creativity into the classroom, I was finding ways to do it. I would dress up in costumes. I would put them on scavenger hunts. Like I was loving that aspect of teaching as well. So let's fast forward. Of course, I didn't go into those things I said I was going to do because I was limiting myself. I didn't think that I had those skills or I was talented enough. But then I started to realize that I thought differently than a lot of people because I would always be like, I have an idea. And then I would share it and people are like, oh, wow. Like, I don't think that way. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, and so I started to realize that maybe I have different talents that I didn't know I had. So let's fast forward to I'm in Pennsylvania. How did I end up here? So I met my husband online, and I knew from the get-go that if one of us was going to move, it was going to have to be me. And so I left small town, Minnesota, and I went out to Pennsylvania, East Coast. So big change, small town, big city, Midwest, East Coast. And then, of course, I had to do it in the summer of 2020. So,
Oh my gosh.
yes. So I finished my 10 years at a school teaching online. I closed up a classroom. I packed up my apartment. I moved cross country, planned a wedding, got married, all in 2020.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yes. So yeah, it's like, now what? Like, it was such a huge amount of change that I think that's kind of where I want to end this little tidbit, because I think some of the other things are going to come out later as we share the story.
Yeah. Wow, that is crazy. I guess I didn't even realize all of that about you.
Yes.
So, I guess what I have to find out is how did you stumble upon my video where I asked my viewers to join me in a private discussion? So I'm assuming you were watching me, but how did you stumble upon it, and what made you, decide to reach out to me and be part of my panel discussion?
So my mom was huge into YouTubing, and she would always show me YouTubers, but I wasn't maybe ready for it or looking for that. But then, world kind of went to a pause. And so October 2020, I started finding creators, and I started watching and going, oh, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And I started like Googling and searching on YouTube for as many as I could find. And then I came across you. And you were home. You were from Wisconsin, which is right next door to Minnesota. You were the Midwest, and I felt comfort from you. And then I loved how you pushed outside of my walls of what I would have thought, and I loved it. And I remember sitting on the couch, and my husband happened to be sick, and we were watching you. He knew you by name by then. But you were asking for panels, and I know you couldn't see me, but my hand shot up and I was like, pick me, please pick me. I want to be on your panel. Like, I had been cheering you on from the moment that I landed on your channel, and I wanted to help you out. Like, I wanted to do whatever you needed so that you could be successful. That's why I wanted to be on your panel. Like, I geeked out ahead of time. I went through your numbers. I was trying to, like, I didn't know what you were going to ask. And so I was going to come in prepared.
I love it. Well, it is funny because now thinking back, I remember one time you said, "Yeah, did you know that you get more views when you use the word shabby chic or something like that?" And I'm like, "I do." And I was like, "How does she know that?" Well, now I know
Yeah.
why. That's awesome. Oh.
Yes.
So so your initial you just wanted to help me out, and then
Yes.
it was funny because in that group of individuals that I had, I didn't know if any of you would be interested in the membership group. So then when I
Yes.
officially opened it up, I was pleasantly surprised that a majority of the people that were part of
Mhm.
my group, my initial call, actually are part of my membership group. And you were one. So
Yes. Yes.
what I guess like from cheering me on to joining the membership, like how did that all happen?
It's a great question. Um, After that panel discussion, because you and Heather were both on there, and you were two of my top watching YouTube videos. And so I think belonging was probably the biggest reason why I joined. It was still in the midst of our country on pause, and I didn't have a lot of connections. And so this was creativity, this was a community. And because I started watching all of these and like, oh, I can do that, I did start to have that dream of maybe one day I would be blessed with a booth. And
Oh,
so I think that was kind of where it came. But to be honest, it was really, I wanted a community. I wanted to belong. And during the panel, that was your heart. You wanted a place where creators could come and know that they're not alone, be encouraged, be inspired, be educated. And that was something I was like, yes, I'm in.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, and that's what I wanted to get across, but sometimes you never know how people are going to
No.
take it. So, yes. Oh, and then I was so excited that, once you joined the group,
Yes.
very short, I'm trying to think, like, it was pretty quick. I feel like you came into the booth not having, or came into the membership not having a booth, not
Yes.
having anything. And
Yes.
then all of a sudden, I remember you came to one meeting and you're like, "You guys, I have a shelf. I just got a shelf." And I'm
Yes.
like, "Oh my gosh." It was so
Yes.
exciting. So, how did that all transpire?
Yeah, it was so crazy. Because I think we started April 2022, right? I think that was correct.
Yes. Yes, it was.
And I had craft shows lined up, so I had started that realm, and so I was getting into it, like dipping my toe into all of it. But I was like, I don't know if it's going to become any more than that. So I actually in August was like, oh, I am going to start making cards. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to kind of switch what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it that way. And I was checking out a couple places for a booth, and it was a day after I had part-time taught at the college, and it was somewhere I had seen. I liked it. I was on their wait list, and I went in, and it was just a couple days before September. It was late August, and I went in there, and the owner happened to be there, and I brought up again, like, oh yeah, I would, like a booth, blah blah blah. And she's like, well, I have a space, you want it? And my eyes got huge, like, okay, like, I went in, we looked at it, and it was just a tall bookshelf. And I was like, well, I gotta go talk to my husband about it. And we talked about it, text her back, okay. And like literally 2 days later was setting it up. And I think the crazy thing about it was I didn't think it was going to happen. And so I had craft shows lined up. And so I wasn't prepared to split between having a permanent location and having the craft shows. But you know what? Sometimes the unexpected is a good thing.
Right. Yes. And a door opens and you have to take advantage of it. So,
Yes,
I know, and many people I think don't consider just doing, a shelf to start off with. They
yes,
automatically think they have to go to a booth. I think it's a great transition though, like to start
yes,
small, dabble, figure out what you want in there, and then
yes,
move into a booth space, which
yes,
actually happened again pretty quick after you had I mean,
yes.
how long was it after you had your shelf? Because
two
I
months,
felt like you just 2 months? Is that what you just said?
two
Okay.
months. Yes,
I'm like, she just set up her shelf and now she's going full in with a booth. So,
yes,
and
yes.
they offered it to you and then that's how it came about? Or did you tell them that eventually you wanted to have a booth?
Well, the funny thing is, I had a different offer between what I ended up taking, but it was the walls up the stairs, and I just felt that I wouldn't be able to display my small. It would all have to be on the wall, and so I passed on that. But I said, keep me in mind for the future. But I did not think that the future was going to be right around the corner. And so she reached out, and it was actually a larger space than I wanted. And then she's like, well, what if I split it? And then I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can do that. And so it was more of a wall L kind of shape. So I had a little depth that I could still put smalls, but it also gave me a wall that I could start to decorate and hang pieces because the bookshelf was limiting. It was a great place to start, but you only have so much height, you only have so much width. And so my husband and I talked it over and we're like, you know what? You want this down the road, but I guess we're going to have it now. And so, yeah, we jumped on into having a booth size booth.
That's awesome. I just remember
Yeah,
that. I was so excited for you and
thank you.
you do like amazing vignettes and displays. So I just love how you curate all the items in each of those. It's they
Thank you.
so awesome. So so you really never had anticipated that you wanted a booth. I mean, did you know at any point leading up to this that you ever wanted to own your own small business? Was that ever like a little glimpse in your mind?
Actually, yes. Back in college, a friend and I would talk about wanting a little shop together. She was a very talented baker, and I was doing more of the creative side, and we joked around it. So I felt like it was a dream for another lifetime, and maybe like farther down the road. And I know my mom and I talked that if we were in the same town, maybe we could have started something together. But it was just one of those far off dreams that you just never thought was going to come true. And then again, October of 2020, all you YouTubers, you influenced me.
That is
um,
awesome.
that it realized, well, maybe I want this to be a real dream, not
Mhm.
just one that's far off. So I think it was always planted. I just maybe didn't tend to it until that time.
Yeah. Okay. And now for all you listeners, Kristen has now even moved from that booth to an even
Yes,
bigger booth,
I
and that
did.
was something recent. So
Yes,
I love how a business can be, ever changing, and you
yes,
can, as your business grows and as you grow as a small business owner,
yes,
then you can expand to do different things. So I love that.
yes.
What has like one of your biggest challenges been being a booth owner and, like even juggling your full time as a teacher, correct?
No, not at this time, but yes.
Okay.
Um, I think it was the learning curve and doubting myself. I think you start to compare and you look at others, you look what you're lacking. Again, going back to that common thread of like, oh, should I be doing this? Well, I think I can do this, but where's my niche? And I think when you are searching for it, you have to define yourself. And I think that can be a huge hurdle, but I think it can also be really rewarding as you find that.
hmm So, like similar to that of like imposter syndrome, like you're
Yes,
yes. I think we all have that. If
yeah,
any of I can't imagine one person saying that they don't have that
right,
because you can be so confident, but then on the flip side, you can just feel like there are days where you like don't feel like like it should be. So,
yeah.
all right. So that has been one of your biggest challenges. What was something that, with your business that you didn't expect? Was there something that you didn't expect with booth life or with your small business?
I think I'm going to go back to maybe the start of Simply Joy. It was a very pivotal point. So I had dabbled with, a craft show, and it ended up being a complete flop. But because of that, it opened doors for the next one. And I think it was November of 2021. And it was a success. Like it blew both of us away, like my husband and I. And I think at that moment we realized it could happen. Like,
Mhm,
and if that had not happened, I don't know if I would be here, where I'm at. And kind of makes me think of your story on how little things along the way really, when you look back, are huge. And so I think that that was so unexpected when we saw the success. Like I pretty much had sold out the first day, and it was a 2-day sale, and just it blew our minds. It just blew our minds. And so I think don't limit yourself, and you don't know what is going to happen. And I think be open to the next chapter, even if you don't feel you're ready, because
mhm,
I think you're very well aware that these nudges of moving to a bigger booth wouldn't have happened had they not been almost pushed on me. Like, oh yeah, I'll get there, I'll do that. Yep, but I'm not ready yet because such a perfectionist that I feel like it needs to be a certain way. And I think um, the unexpected and the nudges is almost the most rewarding, if that makes sense.
mhm. I know, like, I have had to deal with perfectionism as well because not every project is going to turn out perfect or,
No.
not everything is. And sometimes you just have to, accept the imperfections of something. And
Yes.
I remember that booth though that you were talking about, that show. It was your displays. It was how you had your booth displayed, which really helped, I think, drive those sales. So I think that is so key with the proper, having the proper tools
Yes.
to like booth displays, like creating those vignettes. Oh, and plus your products are pretty darn amazing too. You are so creative, girl. And we'll get into that in a minute, but I just wanted to ask you too, just a couple other things. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone who is starting a booth?
Um, I'm gonna get 4.
You're going to get four. Okay. We'll take them. We'll take them. I love it.
um, I think it goes back to some of the things I said, but be you. Find your niche. I think when you're looking for that booth and branding who you are, you can't mimic or become someone else. You have to be true to yourself. And so that would be something as you were starting a booth is to find out who you are, what you want it to be branded as, what is your niche, and to run with it. Second, grace. Give yourself some grace because there's going to be some times where things go absolutely perfect, and other times it just has to be good enough because that's where you're at. And there's a quote that talks about being your best you doesn't mean pushing yourself to a breaking point. And I think that needs to be applied to you as a booth owner is that you have to have that balance and realize you need to give yourself some grace. You need to create for yourself because we love it because we're creative and it's our outlet. But I think you also have to make sure that you are feeding your creative soul, that you need to be taking care of yourself in that way. And so that doing some things that are just for you. And then here's my practical piece. Take photos. You
Oh,
can't
yes.
take enough photos for you to go back and look at what you've been doing and to celebrate those wins, to be like, ooh, that worked, oh, that didn't. And then to advertise for yourself because I think that's something too that your photos can promote yourself and you have to do that. And so I think photos are so key because it helps you look back at things, it helps tell your story, and it helps promote yourself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, all of them are great. Thank you. That was all great advice. Absolutely. I know sometimes, like when I'm getting ready for shows, you do remind me often to give myself grace because I am
Yes,
one to push myself to try to get as much done. And even as I prepare for the October show, that is something I have to realize too. Like, leading up to it, I have learned now that I am spacing things out and I am trying to,
yes,
it's not going to be all at the last minute, so
no,
but yes, and the taking photos is so important, you
yes,
guys. Just like Kristen said, I don't think take befores and afters or
yes,
during. It just makes your people who follow you more interested in what you're doing
yes,
too, and to look back.
yes,
Like even if you do a booth one year and you want to do it again, look back at those photos,
yes,
see, like you said, look what worked, what didn't. So that
yes.
definitely is very, very important. I love it. Um, one last question about the business, and then I want to dive into all things mixed media. But where do you see your business growing or going like in 5 years or 10 years? What do you want from your business?
Oh, wow. That's quite the question, isn't it?
It is.
Um, well, I think thank you for letting me have some time to soak that in because I don't know how I would have answered it. And then it kind of goes back to when I was that little girl on wanting to write a book, wanting to be an artist, a motivational speaker, and an interior designer. And I think it all kind of wraps up into the booth. And so I think that I want to add or incorporate some more writing elements. Now, how that looks, like I know you've nudged me on a blog, but is it a blog? Is it an ebook? Is it something down that, line? But I definitely want to incorporate that. I think the artistry, I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to expand my creativity and my knowledge. And so that is something that I see doing. I also, with the motivational, I want to encourage other creators. I want to encourage those that don't call themselves a creator. I want them to find that way to create just for themselves. And that probably is going to come in some sort of tutorial form. I'm scared to say it out loud. Maybe YouTube. But I do see that as a form of getting out there and encouraging others. And again, I think because my love of vignettes, which I'm excited you're going to expand more on that coming up, but I love it. I love setting it up, and I think that's where I get that feed for that interior design. I get to put it out there and to display it and help others see the vision of how they could use it. So I think all of that is going to be encompassed in the next 5-10 years, but I just want to keep dreaming. I don't really want to put a limit or expectation on what it is because I didn't plan this 5 years ago. And here
Mhm.
I am. So I think dreaming, just to keep dreaming.
I love it. Yes, I agree. And I think you can do both those things. You could write an
Yeah.
ebook and you can be a blogger. I think Kristen is amazing with words. So, I mean, you really are. That's why right away when I was considering starting my own blog, I'm like, Kristen needs to start one. You definitely do. I think it would be amazing, and I know you would have a ton of people reading, so and following
Oh,
you,
thank you.
but well, that was a great insight into, your booth and how you started that. But really, it all stems back from your creating. And really, what I know you so well for is your mixed media.
Yeah.
And Kristen showed me the light, and I have now found the love of mixed media also.
Yeah.
She taught a class during a Tuesday night membership meeting, and she really taught us how to layer and use different textures and items to create that mixed media. And I remember too sitting there and she's like, just put it on, add more and do this. And I know that many of us were like, what? You want us to do what? And after you start doing it,
Yeah.
it now it becomes so natural because now I'm
Yeah.
like, I can apply these techniques to, furniture pieces. I can apply them
Yeah.
to my other smalls. It's not
Yeah.
just like, different,
No.
small, like paper creations. It can be applied to
Right.
so many other things. So, how did you actually discover this love of mixed media?
I think I've had it for as long as I was a little girl. I love doing the collages, like cutting out of the magazines and, creating the beautiful collages. I remember my art teacher saying, though, but that's not art. And I'm like, but I love it. Like, I love this. And then, got introduced to paper crafting. I started making cards and doing other things. And of course, I mean, I talked about being a teacher and loving to incorporate things. So I think all these things were starting to come together that I like this and I like that. And why do I have to choose? And um, I became really sick in 2016, and it was quite the year. It was not good. And so it went, yeah, 2016 into, 2017. And it was December 19th, 2017. And when you're sick, you don't have a lot of energy for a lot of things, but then you also realize the importance of taking care of yourself. Like, you really have a pause on life. And I'd always wanted to go. It was called Kelly Gow's Studio, and the owner was Kelly Gow. And I had seen her work, and I had always wanted to go. and it was for the moment. I asked a couple of friends. One couldn't come, one could. I said, "You want to go? Like, let's just do this." And she was mixed media. She did these amazing creations, just so talented, and it became healing. It really did. And so I was hooked. I started coming monthly, bringing new people. Like, she knew me by name, and yeah, I just absolutely fell in love because I felt like everything that I had loved about creating, about art, was now all in one. Like, I felt like it belonged. It made sense. And I went from there. And so then a few months down the road, she introduced me to journaling with it. And at that point, because I don't know if you've ever done all those canvas painting classes, at one point in time, how many more canvases can you have, but yet you still want to do it? And so she introduced the art journal where I could do it in one journal and I could continue page after page. And again, like I said, it was so healing because you could just put it down just for you. Like, it was,
Mhm.
oh, it was just for you. And so I think that's where the birth of mixed media really happened, but there were so many things prior to it that led me to that place.
Oh, that is awesome. I love it. And I know, and you do showcase your journal on your channel, don't you? Because
Yeah.
that's what you keep on, I think you call it when you create for yourself. Is it once a week you do that? You sit down and you just make time for yourself to create, and that's what you're
I try, yeah.
showcasing.
Hmm.
Awesome. I love it. So, what makes you feel really inspired? Like, what inspires you the most? So, when you're, sitting down and you're trying to come up with a project, where do you get your inspiration?
Probably from my supplies.
I know. I know. That's awesome
Most
because
of
honestly, yeah.
I know. I love to thrift. I mean, I just love to do it, and I love old books, and I love the ones that are falling apart. I love the beautiful illustrations, and so I think a lot of it comes from that. But since jumping into mixed media slash, I would call it junk journaling, I started to think of packaging different. Ooh, that's pretty. Can I use that? And so I think it goes back to the way that I think. Ooh, I have an idea. Like, and how do I explain that? I don't know. It's just how my brain works, that I just have something comes in and I run with it.
I kind of know what you mean. Because well, I don't know if you do what I do, but whenever I'm trying to come up with like a video idea, and I'll like start looking at my supplies or my items, and I call it now my inventory, and I'm like, okay, I look at a piece, and I'm like, what could I do with it? And
Yeah.
then I just start brainstorming about what other items do I have
Yeah.
at hand that I can upcycle. And then all of a sudden, I honestly, it's like I see a color or there's a texture, and then I don't know where it comes from, but all of a sudden I'm like,
Right.
okay, that's what I'm going to use, and then I go on to the
Yeah.
next. So I definitely understand what you're saying about it's all in your brain or whatever you said, but it really is.
Yes,
Oh,
it is. Yeah.
it's like brainstorming, I guess is a good way to put it. So, but yeah, so now that you kind of said how you, what inspires you, like, are there certain artists that do inspire you or that you go to be inspired?
Yes. There is definitely a few that I watch. Thrifty Day. I actually call her Sonnet's version of just journaling because she pushes me outside of what I would have done for the realm. She likes to just go crazy with color and try this with that, and so I've really, really enjoyed her. And I'm so, I hope I pronounced it, Johanna, I think
Okay.
is her name. And she has been a lot of fun, and she's trying to incorporate more drawing and art into it. But it's just, I don't know, I like taking a little from this and a little from that. And I think it goes back to, you have to find out you, like be you. Like you're not trying to mimic anyone. You're just trying to be inspired by them
Mhm.
um and run with it. Just go
Right.
for it. Try it.
Yes. And that's what I say too. Like, even with all my videos, when I create a video and I've had viewers say, I don't have that piece, or I don't have that
Yeah,
paper, or I don't have that stamp. And my whole purpose of doing a video is to inspire a person to take
yeah,
little bits of different techniques and run with it and use
yeah,
it. And, if they can't, like afford a certain piece of, DIY product, or,
yeah,
you know, get creative. And that's
yeah,
the power of, that's what I love about creating, is that
yeah,
I mean, you can create with, like you talked about junk journaling, and I think the base of a junk journal is like an old cardboard box, is what it
yep,
is. So you can
yes,
create with basically all junk if you had to.
yes,
So
yes.
yeah, absolutely. So if you were to give some listeners some advice as to where to start with mixed media, what advice would you give them?
Start small. What do I mean by that? Altered trading cards. And so it's the size of a playing card. And Tater Buggin, she was the one, she was doing one a day. I did not keep up with her. Wow, way to go, one a day for a whole year. But I know, but it was starting small because you're not intimidated by something that small, that you're willing to try something. You're also don't have a lot of space to fill up because the larger canvas is, the more you have to fill it, more you have to do. And start with layers, okay? Do 2 layers the first time, okay? Try 3 layers. Try two different mediums and work up from that. I don't think that you need to jump in and buy everything that you see. I think that's a lot of times that we're like, ooh, that's cool, and you buy almost too much, and then it becomes overwhelming. So I would start with, a glue stick, some paper, whether it's vintage or new. Start with a little paint. Again, could be clay based, it could be acrylic, it could be watercolor, and just work your way up from there. You don't have to go crazy to start with.
Right. That's a really good point. I think that a lot of creators do that. I'm to blame myself too.
Yeah,
That when I see something, I want everything. I want to be able to do this and that, and
right.
like start small. Learn one, like you said, layer with 1 or 2 layers. And I love that
Yeah,
idea because I can see how then it can become overwhelming too, because you have
yeah,
so much stuff and you don't know
hmm,
what to choose from. So
right.
and I have to mention too that Kristen is the one that really put me on hymnal paper, and I have been. I love it.
Yeah,
It was during that class that you taught you
yeah,
said add a little background, and it can be as simple as like a stamp, like a background stamp, or the hymnal paper. And
yeah,
I went on a hunt and I was trying to find him. It took me forever to find some real good vintage hymnal paper, but
yeah,
you have the best luck because you find well, and maybe it's your creativity too, because you look at the title and then you
yep,
create the page based on the title of the hymn or
yeah,
the musical paper. So I love that. So now, you have your booth and you have
yeah,
this love of mixed media, and you now are starting to host classes. So you are
yeah,
already teaching.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that and how that's like all started, and and how it's helping your business.
Well, I actually started while I was still full time teaching in Minnesota. Um, Student council found out that I like to take those kind of classes. And so on their exploratory days, they're like, hey, will you teach them? So I started there by offering it on those days. And then when I was introduced to this booth space, the owner said, well, one of the things we have is we have a place to offer classes. And my eyes lit up and she could tell because, again, sharing creativity with others was something that I completely value. I think it's important. Um, And I think that it's very healing, as I brought up, that, art doesn't have to always be something that you sell, even though that's what we choose to do. Um, it can be just for you. And so I have started to do classes, and I'm making goals of doing it at least once a month. Right now, I'm really focusing on the little because I think it's important to get that creativity started at a young age. And I'm looking forward to expanding it to all ages because I really do have a heart for it to go um, to women. I think that, again, women are so busy with life that they forget to pause. And so I want that just to be a time where they get to just be, they get to just feel, they get to just, have fun and get their hands a little dirty because, mixed media is a little messy, and just have fun.
Right. Well, and I just love how, it started off you going to, I can't even remember the gal's name, that initial creator from the mixed media, and you went to all her classes, and you almost now have become her. You are, you know what I mean? Like you are offering those things, and really think about how you touched or you were touched by her and how
Yeah.
she really helped you heal, and you can do the same for so many. So I love that. I really do. I think it's great. It's like a full circle. So,
Yes.
yes. And the other thing too that I want to mention is that during the membership meetings, you always talk about feeding your own soul and learning new
Yes.
techniques and staying
Yes.
really on top of it and fresh.
Yes.
What other things are you wanting to learn? What other techniques are there any?
Oh, yes. I mean, yes.
Right.
Um,
I'm always wanting to learn too. So you probably could go
right.
on and on, right?
Right. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but someone was watching. She was using a paint called gouache or gouache. It's like
Yes.
yes, acrylic and watercolor together, but the vibrancy. I was like, ooh, I want to learn how to do that. I mean, again, expanding myself with the current products that I have because there's some products that stay in the drawer a little longer than they should because I'm like, ooh, you got to get yourself, pumped up to do that. But I really love taking classes. And so I would encourage anyone listening that if you get a chance to take a class from Royce or Lexi or Jane or whomever else, like it is so important to continue to learn. And I think oftentimes we don't feel like we need or do we ask like we're supposed to be experts or we're supposed to do this, but no, we're supposed to learn. We're supposed to expand and just because they have more experience doesn't mean you're less. It just means that they have something to show you. And I think oftentimes we almost feel like we need to hoard our talent or not share it. And I'm so grateful to everyone who shared their talent so that I could be here today. Like, if those that essentially paved the way when I started watching on YouTube, then I wouldn't be here. So thank you to all of you who are putting yourselves out there so that we can learn. And I feel like I need to do that too. I feel like I need to pay it forward by sharing and encouraging others because, like you said, full circle.
Yep. Well, that makes my heart so happy. It really does because and I am really encouraging you to start your YouTube channel because I think you'll be absolutely amazing, and you have so much to offer. All your amazing talents. So you are
Thank you.
so stinking talented. You do not give yourself enough credit. So, um, but well, where can our viewers find you if they want to be inspired by you as much as I am?
My main platform right now is on Facebook. So, as Shauna said, Simply Joy Creations by Kristen. I also am posting reels on Instagram and TikTok.
Okay. Yes, and I just have to do one more little shout out to you for um, your reels. They are so amazing. And during our membership group, you guys, we had a little challenge and we had to, it was kind of, it was really pushing us all out of our comfort zone with this
Yes.
challenge that we created, or I created. But Kristen like went above and beyond and she learned Canva and taught herself so many amazing things during this challenge. And so definitely go out, follow her on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, on all those places, and hopefully very soon on YouTube, right?
Maybe.
Right? I hope so. Well, it was such a what a great day. I learned so much about you and actually I felt like I feel like you're my friend and I
Yes.
know a lot about you, but I learned a lot about you today. So, and I'm sure my viewers learned a ton as well. So I want to thank you so much for being part of my podcast. And I hate calling you my guinea pig, but you are, like my
Yes.
first, person on here. So, I just love that my viewers today had the opportunity to meet you and just really see how talented you truly are. So thank you, thank you. And so that is basically a wrap of this episode. You guys, in next week's episode, though, as Kristen kind of hinted, I'm going to be talking all things vignettes, which is definitely one of my favorite topics. I love all things vignettes, and so we are going to dive right into that. But if you haven't already and you are listening on any of the podcast platforms, definitely go ahead, rate, review, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And for everyone, you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Sonnets Garden Blooms, where I will post sneak peeks and just a ton more content over there. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and we will see you next week. Bye.